Be careful.
He's and Scott Higgins, both of them coked up out of their minds.
Listen to you. He's down in the basement.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I think we should call this the Acement.
The Acement, yes.
Yeah, what do you think there, huh?
I like that. The Acement Studios.
Excuse me, I'm drinking beer. Hold on a second.
We usually drink bourbon on our end
Yeah,
when we
right.
do the podcast, so
That's all right.
feel free to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You shoot an 8-ball if you want. We don't care, as long as it's good stories.
And welcome to the Acement, everybody. This is Scott Higgins,
And this is Ace Aceto.
and it's time to go behind the funny. All right.
Here we go.
I'm channeling my inner Rodney. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. Thank you for
Rodney
tuning
who?
in this week. Remember when Rodney Norman was on?
Oh.
And he kept leaning into the mic going, all right.
That's right. I'm like, Rodney Dangerfield? He doesn't sound
Oh,
like
I
that.
tell ya.
No, Rodney Norman would be more like, it's really nice to be here. And,
No.
When you get there, you don't know what you're going to until you really get there, and then you know.
Wherever you are, there
wherever
you'll
you
be.
are. Yeah.
But thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. We appreciate it so much. Thank you for the support. We have an awesome bourbon date this week.
Yes, we do. We've got Whistle Pig, which I dated.
Which I love
Oh.
that name because you drink enough of that, you wake up with a whistle pig.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, this is the 6-year Whistle Pig, aged in new American oak barrels. It's delicious.
It's
I
actually
like
very
it.
good. Yeah. Trying a new one this week.
Yeah,
And
Clinkies. Drinking it out of our Maker's Mark glasses. We're
equal
blaspheming.
opportunity when it comes to bourbons.
Exactly.
That's
No,
it.
What did I say? My goddamn kids have been using my whiskey glasses to drink their fucking soda.
They're walking around with Cokes going.
Cokes, yeah.
So, welcome to the bar,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah, go look at the hot tub outside. One of them left a glass outside 3 nights ago. I'm like, what the frig?
That is what happens when you have kids that are a little bit younger. I have older kids that use my bourbon glasses for actual bourbon.
Yeah, right.
So that's the difference.
Well, I guess I shouldn't complain.
yes,
'cause
exactly, because
they
they'll be
haven't
tapping
touched the
into
bourbon.
your bourbon.
Yeah,
so.
no, they haven't touched it yet.
But anyway, we got a great bourbon date this week. Him and I are excited. We got a great guest this week.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get to it. Who did you schedule for us this week, buddy?
All right, we've got a guy who is he's a 12-year veteran of comedy. He's from, look at you going in for seconds already.
I have to. After 12 years, you are definitely a veteran
Hey,
of comedy.
and
absolutely.
We didn't even plan this. We have to have 2 of these, so because this is a 6-year aged bourbon, and our guest has been doing comedy for 12 years.
That makes
so
sense.
So if we have 2 of them, see, the math all works out. So this guy is a very, very funny guy. I've seen him online, but I haven't had a chance to work with him.
I haven't either.
And neither of us have, but we've been this is one of those like, hey, we're Facebook friends, but haven't worked together. And I asked him if he wanted to be on, and he surprisingly said, yeah, I'd love to.
Why are we still surprised when people say yes?
I don't know.
We're so insecure. Oh, that's right. We're comics.
Yeah, we have low self-esteem.
That's what
why.
it is.
But no, he's from Central Massachusetts. He does a lot of fundraisers.
Yes.
With our buddy Jerry Caruso, who's another guy we haven't had on that we need to get on. I don't think we've had
I was on
Jerry
his podcast,
Yeah.
his online show that he does. Jerry's a great guy,
Jerry
too.
does
yeah.
a ton of fundraisers in Central Mass.
Involved in a lot of stuff. Great guy.
So we got to get him on. But this guy is in the stable of Jerry's comics and Jerry's kids. Sorry. Different Jerry. He's not one of Jerry's kids. He's not one of those kinds.
Wow.
Hey, hello, lady.
Hello.
Yeah. No, but this guy, very, very funny guy. We're really excited to go behind the funny with Mr. Brian Holland. Brian, he's in mid-drink. Sorry, buddy. I brought you in just as you were taking a sip. Welcome to Behind the Funny, man. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So,
You said 12 years.
yeah, 12 years. Where was the first time you got up on stage?
I don't remember where it was at even. It was an open mic
Yep.
I was invited to go by a guy who got me started doing comedy. I went to go see one of his shows, and I thought I could do at least that well.
Yeah.
So
Who was
I
it?
went. It was Ralph Gabriel.
Oh yeah.
Don't know.
Ralph
wait a
the
minute.
Funny Man Gabriel. Yeah,
What's his first name again?
Ralph.
Ralph
Gabriel.
Yeah, I know I've heard of him, and I think I've worked with him. But is he still doing comedy?
I don't know. I don't. We don't talk anymore. I haven't
Yeah.
talked to him in a while.
Now, Brian, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 55.
All right,
Hey,
so
you're
same
our-
age as
our
us.
age, yeah.
Same age as us. So you started at 40, 42 years old, 43 years old.
Yeah, 40.
So you started older, like I did. You weren't a 20-something, so you're out there with these 20-somethings. What made you want to stand on stage that first time and try it? Because, to me, that first time I got on stage, I was in my early 30s, which I thought was hard standing with these 20-year-olds. Now
Yeah.
here you are in your 40s getting up with these 20-somethings.
Yeah.
So what made you want to try it that first time?
I've always done public speaking and stuff like that. I don't have a flooring company.
Okay.
I'm used to speaking with customers all the time, and I was in the Army, so I'm used to speaking to large crowds, platoon or company formations and stuff like that. Age for like that.
Yep.
Yeah, but
And,
barking orders at guys that have to listen to you and trying to make people laugh that don't
It's
have
a
to
little
sit there
different, yeah.
is got to be
Yeah.
a little different.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But yeah, there's definitely a learning curve involved. I'm sure you both know that.
Oh yeah.
The first time I went on stage, it was open mic, and it was one of those comedians open mics. You know what I mean? So
All of it was all
everybody's looking at
comics.
their notes. Yeah, they're all looking at their notes, or
Yep.
they're preoccupied with what they're going to get on stage and say, trying to, or they're worried about how they did on stage, and they're talking with. You don't have audience,
Yeah.
and that only put a fire under me. It was the first time I went up on stage. It was the only time I brought notes up on stage,
Yep.
and it was, like I said, the first time. So I never did that again.
You never brought notes up again after that.
No, just the first time. That was it.
Wow.
After that, I committed everything to memory.
That's impressive.
Did you
Yeah.
because everyone has a different process. So do you write out jokes and then practice them on people or in front of a mirror, or is it kind of stream of consciousness? Topics you want to talk about and kind of weave in and out of the jokes, or like what's your process?
Yeah, I use my family and friends as sounding boards.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also post jokes on Facebook or something like that and see how they're received.
Mm-hmm.
And I run from that.
Yeah.
Whatever works, and I try to segue through my jokes, so it's like I'm not doing a Stephen Wright, just off topic things.
Right. Yeah.
One after another. I try to segue through my set. Of course, obligatory callbacks and
Yeah.
all that.
What's that?
When
I don't know what those are.
involve the audience, everything you're supposed to do.
I've got about an
Ace-
hour and 45 minutes of material total, and I have no callbacks. I want someone to watch my act and go, you could stick a callback here. This would be great.
Ace couldn't spell callback.
I literally do callbacks all the time on this show. I cannot write a callback for my act to
It's
save my
it's
life.
amazing. We'll be doing conversations with people. He'll call back to a previous episode. He tells stories. He can do callbacks. Get him on stage. Zip.
Nothing.
Nothing.
I can't. I don't know why. I don't know why. So are you a joke teller, or are you, because obviously if
Or
you
a storyteller.
or are you more of a storyteller?
No, I tell jokes, but by the time I'm done, it's told a story.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not just like a story about an event or something that happened in my life. It's like one event. It's just the way I. Mostly I try to defend my drinking, and I'm horrible at defending my drinking.
Well, listen, we'll buy it.
I don't know
for
what
it.
I don't know
have
what
no
that's
idea.
like.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah. It's more of a fact people laughing at me, for trying to defend my drinking and the way I do it and my logic
Right.
behind.
Yeah, you
And
have to.
that-
You make yourself the butt of the joke.
Which I think that's what all really good comedians do, is they make themselves the
target.
joke. Yeah, the target at the end of it. So they're not, pointing at anybody in the audience. They're not making fun of their family. They're not making fun of other people. They put that on themselves,
Right.
And that
Yeah.
that's what all the best ones have always done. And
Yeah,
we
I
talk about
agree.
Rodney Dangerfield a lot. The no respect at all. He was always the one being disrespected by his wife, by his doctor, by his kids, by
Right.
everything like that. It was
Yeah.
always him.
He was the butt of the
Yeah.
joke.
He was the butt of the
Yeah.
joke. And I think that
Yeah.
all your best comedians do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And for attack my audience, I see some comedians go up on stage and they start doing crowd work and they insult what someone works or, you know what I mean, what they're wearing, whatever
Yeah.
it may be. And I never do that. I stay away from politics and religion because you're instantly alienating 50% of your crowd. So you do one or the other.
Especially with politics, yeah.
Yeah, it's, so I stay away from that stuff.
Yeah, I can speak from doing a lot on religion because I grew up Catholic, so I do a lot about growing up Catholic. But I can tell you, I just did some shows down in Florida last month, and one of the shows did not go well because I did my stuff about being Catholic, but there were some very, very holier than thou people in that crowd. They weren't Catholic, but they were definitely Christian, and they didn't like what I was saying.
Yeah.
But, that's
We walk a fine line
it's a
nowadays.
chance you take, yeah.
You know,
Oh, and when I do crowd work and I bust on someone, first of all I establish that I'm an idiot before that, so they
Yeah.
understand like, oh, I'm the butt of the joke. I don't get it. But as soon as I bust on someone, I turn it around back on me. And if you can
Yeah.
do that, then I think you can keep the audience. But I
Oh,
think
that's
there are
the
too
proper
many.
way to do it.
right?
Yeah, there's
right.
too many people that they see really good crowd work comics like a Jim McHugh or a John Perrotta. Someone
I was
who's
gonna
new.
mention John. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
John, if you notice, John has a smile on his face and he's making himself the butt of the joke. Yes, he's busting balls, but he makes himself the butt of the joke, so he gets away with it. The problem is when newer comics see him do that and think that they can try it,
Yeah.
and they can't because they can't. They end up digging themselves into a hole because they haven't established that, hey, I'm the idiot, I'm the joke, before they do it. They just go after someone and then you're going to alienate them.
Yeah, I've seen it happen on stage, and it's like worthy. I don't want it up there, but I'm actually glad that I didn't get into comedy until later. Because
Yeah.
it's you have to be more mature to really understand all the nuances of comedy, and
Yeah.
it's like developing your taste of food. You don't like onions when you're 25, but by the time you get to be 45, they're delicious.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and you don't give a shit what your breath smells like because you know how to brush
Yeah.
your teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
know-
But it's just, I just, I see a lot of younger comics, and some do a great job. I'm not, shitting on younger comics or anything, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a
some of them-
learning
some of them-
process.
aggressive. It's I've seen a lot of times where it just doesn't work, and I hate following somebody like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned the crowd work thing, and I don't know what it is lately. I've noticed a lot of younger, newer comics feel this need to do crowd work, and
We were just talking about one before we went live.
yeah, it's these guys that have, they're
3 or
opening
4
acts.
years.
They got 15 minutes of material, and they're up there and they're doing crowd work. And I honestly, I don't care when I'm closing a show. Whatever, do your act, and I'll
your act and-
I'll go
yeah.
up there and I'll do my act. And I'm not one of these people that don't say this, don't do that, whatever. Just do your thing. I'll do my thing. But if you only have 15 minutes and you have to do crowd work, then maybe you need to work on some material.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. They want to be able to say, I can do 25 minutes. I can feature. When
So
you
they,
can,
so
you
they,
can
they've
feature.
had that set up with crowd work.
Yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
but they're not good at the crowd work yet. They're,
Right.
like you
Right.
said, before, Brian, they go up there and they're insulting the crowd. They're not doing, they don't know the art of crowd work yet.
Right.
Crowd
Yeah,
work.
do a response. Like if someone, chimes in to, the subject matter I'm talking about or whatever, I might just have a retort or something like that.
Right.
I don't sit there and do, like John Prada does,
Right.
25 minutes or half an hour of crowd work. I just, I don't do
Right,
that.
but a lot of
I'll
guys
engage the audience, if they
Right.
say something.
but
Yeah.
you would also maybe use the crowd work to segue into one of your jokes.
Right.
I always do. I
Right,
always try to work
exactly.
it in. My response always works into the next joke I was going to.
Exactly, and that's what I would do as well because I'm not a crowd work guy.
Yeah.
I'm more of a storyteller, joke teller type of guy. So if I have to engage with the crowd at all, I'm going to try to steer it towards what I want to tell for my next joke.
Yeah.
And so I can get back into
My material.
My material.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit there and spend 20 minutes,
That's not a
engaging with them.
specialized thing alone. Just doing,
Exactly.
doing storytelling. There's crowd work. There's storytelling. There's Doing G-rated work.
Yes,
Right.
exactly, and they're all different art
I
forms.
can't do it. I can't. Like I've been asked.
Yeah.
Can you work clean? I can take the swears out of my set, but
Right.
no, there's that many. I'm not blue, but
Right. But see,
um,
you know what the problem is?
it's
Clean is a
So-
very clean is a very subjective word.
yeah,
Because listen, I can be clean, but because I talk about growing up Catholic, I'm not necessarily politically correct when it comes to religion. So
Yeah.
while I could get hired by a church and they'll say, "Are you clean?" Absolutely, I'm clean. But I'm
Yeah.
probably going to piss people off if they're
Yeah.
ultra religious and don't have a sense of humor and can't take the lighthearted joking that I'm doing about religion.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I
We
mean?
did. I hosted a benefit show for a church, and it was in the church basement, like underneath
Yeah.
the friggin' church.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had Joe Hebert headlined. I had Jerry Crusoe on it. I believe James Dorsey was on that show too, and
Yep.
it was a good show. But I hosted, so it wasn't that much of a stress on me.
Exactly. Yep. Listen,
But I had to watch what I said, what I was saying, my jokes. I grew up
Yep.
Catholic also,
yeah.
and it was a Catholic church and stuff. Yeah, I went to private schools and all that, and I went, St. John's High Schools, Catholic high school, all that.
Yep.
So I got beat up by nuns in grade school, and I got beat up by priests in high school.
Right. Yeah. So
And now you get beat up by your wife, so you're
yeah.
just used to
Right.
it at
But
this
if
point.
if you talk about that to some people who are ultra, like, listen, let's face it, there was a lot of shit that went on in the 40s through the 70s and 80s in the Catholic Church, and there are people who don't want to face that and want to deny it. But as a person who grew up during that time, I'm not talking about, I don't, it's not like I go out of my way to do, rape jokes or anything like that, but if I'm poking fun at it,
Right, it can be a little funny, it's how you word it and what you say. But
absolutely.
I don't have any rape jokes I say on stage. But if you start associating with the Catholic Church, I think it can be done. It can be done well.
Exactly, but that's the thing. I do some stuff I talk more about the religion itself and some of the
you do, but you talk more about your interpretation of it when
Right.
you were going.
Right.
You don't make fun of the actual religion.
No, I'm talking about the stories that we were taught, and it's like, how did no one question this, or how did no one ask why Paul was writing letters
Yes,
to people?
that's
that
what I'm
he
talking
didn't know?
about.
Yeah,
You're sitting there kind of saying what you thought when this was happening,
Right.
not so much questioning the actual religion itself.
No, it's more just being
Right.
a little irreverent in stating the questions that as a kid you would never
right.
ask because you would get beaten
Right
at the time.
You're pointing out these silly things that you
Right.
kind of thought of,
But there
and these
are-
silly scenarios. But
there are people that can't handle that.
And Brian, let me ask you this, because we talk about this all the time. You mentioned the rape thing, and I had a joke that had the word rape in it. It wasn't about rape at all. It was about a rape whistle.
Yeah.
So that's how stupid this is. But because the word rape existed in it, I had to stop doing it because it was triggering people. And if I have to drop one joke after 21 years, that's fine. I'll drop
Right.
one joke. It's not breaking my heart. I'm not one of these people that it's like freedom of speech. I can say what I want. It's one joke. I'll move on from
Right.
it. Have you had anything in the current climate over the last 4 or 5 years that you've had to adjust, change, or drop in your act? Because of the way things are with wokeness and the way
Right.
society is,
Yeah, I
that maybe you
definitely
used to
have.
do that you can't do anymore.
Yeah, I definitely have. Like everybody else, he jokes that are like edgy, risque, as far as like transgender and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I've had jokes that I used to tell that I don't dare tell anymore.
Yeah.
With
You
the
have to be careful.
retribution from the liberal left.
It depends on the age of the crowd, I'm finding, because I do a joke about dating, and I'm not going after like transgender or anything like that, but I make a little comment about it.
Yeah, me too.
And I notice that if it's a younger crowd, I get groans. If it's an older crowd, they laugh. So I still keep it in for the older crowds, but I just don't do that part of it. There's other parts of the joke that I can do. I just drop a couple of lines if I'm going to do it for a younger crowd, because I don't want to trigger anyone to be pissed off.
See, I'm lucky enough, Brian. I have 3 daughters that are 2 are in their 20s, one's turning 30, and one of them's a lesbian, so I can run stuff by them and say, listen, if I say this on stage, would this really insult people, or will they understand where it's coming from?
Yeah, it's good to have that age group and for a soundboard and everything else. It's wonderful to have.
It actually is, and what I found in having conversations with them is they're really not as standoffish and we don't understand things as I think that a lot of people make them out to be. They do have a sense of humor. It's, if you word it right, they'll laugh at it. They're okay. They'll laugh at themselves. You just got to word it where you're not, being mean.
Absolutely.
But that's with everybody and everything. As long as it's not coming from a mean place, people will laugh at it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, remember the Pope quit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wrote a joke about that. It was time sensitive.
Yeah.
So, I couldn't, you've dropped because of Pope quitting. But yeah, I wrote a joke that, when the Pope quit, I don't blame him for the Pope for quitting. I don't hold it against him, because every good Catholic knows that it's okay to pull out early.
That's a good joke.
Good one. Yeah.
That's a good joke.
Yeah, that
you
joke
don't do
did well
that
on stage, but it was
didn't-
time sensitive,
Yeah,
They couldn't tell it still.
you might poke a few people with that one, but that's a good joke.
You didn't do that one at the church fundraiser underneath the church.
No,
did
I
you?
did not do that one at the church fundraiser.
See, that's a callback, Scott. I did one.
Not on stage. Not on stage.
So where did you grow up in Leicester, Mass?
I did.
Yeah. So first of all, can you explain?
Great dispensary in Leicester.
Well,
by the way.
I just want to find out, how the fuck did they come up with pronouncing it Leicester when it's spelled Leicester?
Yeah, I know, right?
I've heard of Leicester, Mass, and then I did a show at the Leicester Country Club, and the whole time I'm driving in, and I go, "Oh, it's Leicester."
Yeah, it's like Leicester. Yeah. Well, there's a Leicester, England, and there's a Worcester, England.
Oh, okay. And
There's Leicester, Worcester, and Mass,
right.
And but
like
Worcester,
that.
England, is more of a town like Leicester, United States, Leicester, Mass. And Leicester in the UK is more a city like Worcester.
Oh,
but
okay.
Everything in Mass is like named after. They're all
That's
New England. They're all named after England stuff. Yeah, it's all the same names. New Bedford, all that.
Yeah,
it's all over there too. So
except for Fall River is in Portugal. So you grew up. Did you have siblings growing up?
Yeah, I have a brother. We have the same mother, and I have 3 younger brothers, same father. So actually, I was a youngest child, an oldest child, a middle child, and an only child.
You've been
all at the
everything.
same time.
Holy shit.
Jeez,
That's a first.
this is, in 7 seasons.
Yeah, we've never had
kind of
someone-
calculated who the comedian, if they're the oldest, the youngest, the middle.
Usually it's the youngest or the middle.
Right.
and you-
Never had somebody that had multiple roles.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my
That's crazy.
my older brother, we had the same mother, so I'm the youngest, and youngest one's I'm the oldest brother.
And then you're in the
all
middle
my
of
brothers
everyone.
together, I'm in the middle. But I'm the only kid they had together, so I'm an only child
that's
too.
crazy. Oh, wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
It's like a riddle.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So, were you the funny one in the family growing up? Were you?
Yeah,
like-
always. Yeah. And I was in the army too. Like the worst stuff got in when I was in the service. I served overseas and everything. The worse stuff got, the more jokes I made.
Yeah.
People want to be around me. They want to be
listen,
around me.
Gallows humor is people don't understand it because when I was on the fire department. He's been on the fire department. I mean, some of the worst, most inappropriate jokes you'll ever hear are from first responders, and it's because that's how you deal with the
and-
shit that you see all the
Exactly.
time.
And I'm sure it was the same way in the service too. Those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And especially if you served overseas and saw some shit, that
That was
that's-
my defense mechanism, was to make jokes.
Right. And people, normal lay people don't understand that, but that's your way of dealing with what you had to see. Because if you had to deal with it in a real human way, you'd fucking lose your mind.
Yeah, and
that's,
people do. Yeah.
and they do. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Is people
That's
really
why people,
do.
enjoy around, in situations like that, because I made them feel a little better, forget about their problems for a couple of minutes, whatever, even if it's just 1 minute.
Where did you
get that
serve?
experience. I served over in Europe.
Okay.
I was in Kitzbühel, Germany. I pulled border guard on the East German border.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So you were nailing German tail over there. So
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of half brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
no, listen, my dad was in the Korean War. He always used to talk about being in the Korean War. Never went anywhere near Korea. He was stationed in the Navy in Germany. And
hey,
there's a bunch of pictures online of him with all these German women. And my brother and I are like, yeah, we definitely have some fucking half brothers and sisters in Europe. It would not surprise me if a DNA test came back
Yeah.
and we had some brothers and sisters over there.
there's some half Italians, half
Yeah,
Germans somewhere.
exactly.
If you're a single American male soldier over in Germany, you're a 10.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And
they all
imagine in the
wanna marry
60s. Yeah. Or
They
the
all want to
50s.
get pregnant and marry us and come back to the States.
Right. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
So what are some of the highlights in your career? Like, are there any places that you've gotten to work or people that you've gotten to work with that you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm playing this place, or I can't believe I'm getting to work with this person?
Yeah. One of the shows I did was the Richard Pryor Junior Hurricane Sandy Relief Fund program.
Really?
Yeah. MTV 2, I believe it was the one that filmed it.
Uh-huh.
It was in New York City at Lucky Jack's. And I got to work with Richard Pryor Jr.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, super nice guy. Originally, I was supposed to go before him, and it left. Now I'm up before you. I don't want to go up after you.
Really?
It's a nice compliment for him. He's a super nice, humble guy. But
Who else was on that
Yeah,
show?
there was a kid that was a young kid, and that's why MTV2 was there. They were documenting his career trying to start in the stand-up comedy.
Yep.
And I'm sure it didn't go anywhere.
It didn't go anywhere because he's
it was open mic status,
Oh yeah.
It was open mic status, but it was raised a good cause, relief fund program. Like I said, it was, Richard
Yeah.
Pryor Jr. started the cause, and
Wow.
he raised a lot of money, and I was glad to be a part of that. Even when the MTV, you had to sign a release so they can use any footage that they have, and
Right.
Yep.
you don't get paid for it.
Right.
and
Yeah, they
you
own
had to
the
hold your
material.
ID up along with the form. Next thing you had, they took a picture, you know.
Yeah.
It's like a
But,
mug
uh,
shot.
Yeah, like a mug
It was
shot.
it was a fun experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He looks so much like his dad, and he's so
Yeah,
soft spoken.
really?
Guy. He's a yeah,
Oh, we lost
super
you for
nice
a
guy.
second. We lost you for a second.
I've
What'd
met a
you say?
bunch of people like Big J. Ogerson and Bert Kreischer and all them.
You worked with Bert Kreischer?
I didn't work with them. No, my son went disc golfing with him,
Oh, really?
and then we went to his show afterwards.
Now, does he disc
And then
golf without a shirt too?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just his thing.
no, he had a shirt on. We were disc golfing.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah,
just
my son had
curious.
a custom disc made for him.
Oh,
Pretty
really?
boy.
Did it have chest hair glued to the disc? That's what I would have done.
Yeah.
Here's
The
a furry
machine.
disc.
No, it was a Birdie Boy show, story he was doing. And my son found him. He knew, my son knew he was out on a disc golf course in Worcester. And my son went out and found him on the course and gave him the custom disc he had made. And
that's too
it was
funny.
on his Bert's Instagram.
So your son essentially stalked
And then he hung out
him.
with us after the show.
So your son essentially stalked him on a disc golf
Yes.
course. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's on his Instagram calling the police.
Yeah, exactly.
Just was stalked by someone.
Some freak just jumped out of the woods with a disc custom
Threw
made
a
for
manhole
me.
cover at
Yeah,
me.
right. That's funny.
Yeah.
So,
Now,
Yeah, and
Brian,
then
what,
after
what's
the show, I went to go see him at the Hanover Theater in Worcester.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Oh yeah, after the we went to go see the Hanover show, the show at the Hanover in Worcester, and after the show, we hung out with him at his bus for about half an hour, 40 minutes or something like that.
That's cool.
Super nice guy.
Now what? And I
Yeah.
find, and I don't know about you, but I found that 99% of the comedians that I have met and got to work with, even the bigger name guys, are really nice people.
yeah.
Majority of them are really nice
Yeah.
people. There is literally only one that I've seen really not be nice, and luckily it wasn't to me. He was not nice to somebody else that was on the show, and the person kind of deserved it, but they were a little over the top. But majority of comedians are generally nice people.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear good stuff about. I heard one thing about J.J. Walker once. I guess it was something a woman said a problem with, and outside of that, I've never heard anything else bad that about
Well,
him.
and like
But
Ace,
yeah, I met
Ace-
Harry Spears and I doing shows at comics, and they were on the 8 o'clock show, and I was on the 10 show, and I got to hang out with like I said, Harry Spears and Big J. Ogerson and stuff like that.
right.
And
Now,
great guys.
Like Ace has said in the past, when you hear these stories of these guys not being so nice, you don't know. You could catch anybody on a bad day.
Oh, without a doubt.
There was a one time that Ace was working in Providence at a show. He's headlining, and he kind of had a run in with somebody, and he didn't even realize it. And the guy told was like, "You were kind of a jerk to me," and he's like, "Really? I was," and it was just kind of a bad day type of situation.
When I was at
Yes,
disc.
you
I
were.
thought you were talking about no. What happened was we were booked on a show, and it was like an hour and a half away in Connecticut, and what they didn't tell me, they said that the show was booked and these were the comics, and then they added this person on the show and didn't tell me. And when you're an hour and a half away and it's a fucking, I want to say it was like a Wednesday or a Thursday night gig, so it's like, listen man, I work a day job, I got to get up the next morning. So you just stuck someone on the show, and then the person was told to do like 10 minutes, and they fucking did 25. So, yeah, I was kind of in a pissy mood that night because I wanted to get home at a decent time, and it just extended the show even longer. So, but I never meant to be an asshole to that person. But he ended up calling me out,
Yeah,
and I
but
was
I give
glad that he
someone a light.
did.
Once they run past 5 minutes, I'm up on stage. I give someone a light once they've passed 5 minutes,
Right. But see,
I'll
I
walk right
wasn't
on
running
stage
the
now,
show.
getting ready to
But
take the mic out of the hand. I don't let that happen.
But see, I wasn't running the show, so it's tough because I just was hired to
Yeah,
headline.
if you're not running the show, that's different.
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Hey, real
Yeah.
quick, I didn't realize we've got some. We had someone making comments. Polly Chaser, who's a big drinks, jokes, and storytelling fan.
yeah.
Because we're on the drinks, jokes, and storytelling channel on Twitch. We haven't mentioned them in a while, but we love them. They let us on their channel. Our buddies Richie Byrne and Mark Riccadonna. But Polly Chaser is a fan of the thing, so they started writing some comments, and I'm so sorry. So he wrote a couple of comments. Should that be the only requirement? If there's a large enough crowd, won't any joke be potentially offensive to someone? Which is true. You're going to offend some.
If you have a large enough crowd, or if you do comedy long enough, you will offend probably everybody in the crowd at some point.
At some point.
Yeah, you're correct. You're
how
correct.
far are we going to take this then? Right.
If
Exactly.
it's done properly, yes.
And then they said the death of comedy is self-censorship, in my opinion. And then they said, I guess I'm talking to the sky here. And then I realized that they were on. And they said, you're
Talking
not
to the
around,
sky,
Tom?
yeah.
Well, you know what it is? Because Tom Bannis, who is he's kind of like the man behind the Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling channel on Twitch, normally moderates a lot of the shows on here. So he answers a lot of the questions on the other shows that are on here. And unfortunately, Tom doesn't moderate our show. So, hold on. He said, at Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling, hope you address
Without adult supervision.
my points and maybe even refute them. No, I agree with you, Polly Chaser. You made some really good points about this. And listen, if we could get Tom Bannis on here to moderate our fucking show, that'd be awesome.
And he mentioned self-censorship. I don't think it's so much self-censorship.
Yeah.
Bobby
Yeah, I don't
Collins
think
was
it's
on
that.
our Bobby Collins was on our podcast, and at the end of the day, like he said, our job is we're entertainers. Our job is to entertain people.
Yeah.
If you go up and you are purposely, knowingly pissing people off on a regular
That's
basis with a
different.
joke, you're not entertaining them anymore. So we walk that fine line.
Like
as
Bill Burr in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But you know what?
You know what?
That,
Kudos to him, though.
that was entertaining. And
For everyone outside of Philadelphia.
you know what? But he
I
turned that
loved it.
crowd around.
Did he?
By the end of
By the
him
end?
doing
Yeah.
that, they clapped for him.
Yeah.
You know, which
Yeah.
he might not have been able to do that, but he did in that case.
Right.
But I'm just saying that, some comedians are like, it's our job to comment on social situations. Yeah, you can do that if you can pull it around in an entertaining way.
Yeah, if you're
But
a comic,
I'm
you have to
talking
make people laugh.
I'm
That's the
talking about
fucking
people
job.
at our level.
Yeah.
At our level, when people come to our comedy shows, they're coming to see a comedy show to laugh.
They don't know we're going to be there.
When
most
they go to
times.
see
Right.
Bill Burr, they're going to see Bill Burr.
Right.
When they go to see Dave Chappelle, they're going to see Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
They expect them to say those things. That
They
are
know what they're getting.
controversial. Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They understand those guys are going to say those things and push the envelope. They're going to push the buttons. When some guy, some chubby middle-aged guy is
Right.
standing on stage that they've never seen before, I
feel
think that-
targeted.
Yeah, right. Well, and you know,
I'm looking in the mirror, Brian. I'm
no.
looking in the
Offended
mirror.
me.
But I'm just saying I don't have the license to do that yet. That's all I'm saying.
It's
Yeah.
funny because Polly Chaser just commented again. The premise for any comedian should be attempting to make people laugh, not worry about something that might offend someone. And we've talked about it before. Jim Carrey has said it. He said, you see me do something that works and it's hilarious, but what you don't realize is for every one thing that worked, there were 10 things I had to throw out there and try
Right.
that didn't work.
Yeah.
And you have to have that ability to throw those things out. You can't censor because you're not going to find that gold nugget if you're not allowed to throw out the 9 other pieces of shit that don't work. You have to be able to
I've
do
got
that.
so many notebooks full of jokes that I don't tell.
No, and
Because I tried it and that didn't work. Sounded o'clock from the road.
Right.
Yeah,
But you don't.
get
But you
married
don't
to a
keep,
joke.
Yeah, no, but that's the difference. You don't keep it in just because of that. So, for example,
Yeah.
If a comedian makes up things just to piss
to piss
people off,
off,
but
yeah.
but Polly Chaser, there are comics that do that.
Andy Kaufman was all about, but he didn't want to make people laugh. He wanted to get some sort of visceral response from
Well,
the audience.
and Bobcat Goldthwait said,
Yeah, he was.
I heard him talking to Robin Williams one time, and he said back in the day, he used to purposely try to piss people off.
absolutely, yeah.
Because he goes,
Well-
if I piss you off, I own you. He
Right.
goes, Robin, you used to make people love you. He goes, which obviously was a lot more lucrative.
Right. Yeah.
he goes,
Well,
but if I pissed you off, I
look at-
owned you.
Look at what Tony. Look at what Tony V told us when he
Yes,
was on.
yes.
He was like, Bobcat was just a fucking maniac in the beginning. He goes, I was standing outside, and all of a sudden, someone walked outside and goes, "Hey, you need to get your friend because he's fucking pissing people off in there." He goes, he walked in, and Bobcat was hanging from the rafters over a table, screaming at people. You know, I'm sure the rest of the audience was fucking loving it, but
what I
that
was
table was pissed off.
What I was talking about with license to do things is if you know who the comedian is and what he's about, he can do things. But, I see these young comedians that purposely push buttons, and it's like, no, you haven't earned the right to do that yet.
Yeah, right.
You're still just trying to
Yeah,
get laughs
absolutely.
and work your way up.
Right.
You don't have the rep
Yeah.
to do that yet.
Yep.
You
And
know.
Polly Chaser just
Yeah,
said the
you
only
need to have a
logic.
name out there first, and
Right.
Right. Polly Chaser just said the only logical answer has to be just try to be funny and do not care about what the fact that some people are not going to be entertained.
As long as you're
Other
trying to be
option-
funny.
Other option, and that's the Jim Carrey way of thinking about it, is you have to just try stuff. You can't be afraid to try new stuff because you
Oh,
never
without
know
a
if it's
doubt.
going to work. You know,
And I'm not talking
Yeah.
about trying to be funny. Trying to be funny is fine. I'm
Yeah.
talking about those people that are purposely trying to make people uncomfortable or piss people off.
Right.
There's a difference
Yeah, there
between
is
the
a
two.
difference.
It's
Yeah.
okay to talk about uncomfortable things if you're trying to be funny with it.
right.
I have no problem with that. I'm talking about the ones that are purposely trying to rub people the wrong way or push buttons.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah,
fine line
you know.
sometimes between the two.
Yeah.
they watch Andrew Dice Clay and like, I can go up there and piss people off.
Right.
Clay does. Andrew Dice Clay, it seems like he's trying to do that, and the young comics like idolize that, and then they go up and try it, and it doesn't
that's-
work.
But that's
Right.
the problem with most comedy is young comics idolize someone and try to be them, but they haven't built up the skill set that person has first. You know?
Absolutely.
And that's what open
Yeah.
mics are for. But that's what open
Well,
mics
the
are
life
for.
experience,
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
yeah,
like
the
you
life
said,
experience to talk about certain subjects.
Well, like you
Yeah.
said earlier, you started later in life. Scott started later in life. I started when I was 21, but I saw a lot of that because you saw an evolution, and even Eddie Murphy said it in one of his interviews, or actually it was in Raw or Delirious. I think it was. Which one was the first one? I always fuck it up.
Delirious was the first one.
Even in Delirious, he said, "I've been writing jokes since I was 12 years old, but they were about shit.
Yeah.
It was about taking a shit. And when you're younger, you write about what you know. So what do most younger comics talk about? They talk about shit jokes, fart jokes, masturbation jokes, sex jokes, because at fucking 18, 19, 20, that's all you've experienced. You haven't experienced having a family, having kids, buying a house, traveling for a day job or anything like that we as old fucks are able to bring into our
Right.
act. My dating stuff now is
Yeah.
all from the perspective of I talk a little bit about dating before, but a lot of it is dating since I've gotten divorced and how the differences are from dating in my 20s to dating in my 50s. And a 20-year-old doesn't have that experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
I
just went
agree.
on a tangent there for a
Holy
few
shit,
minutes.
I know. I went fucking full tangent. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
No, it's true though. You talk about what you know, and when then young kids try to tackle adult subjects that they're not well versed on or they're not knowledgeable about, and they try to write jokes about it. It's usually not well put together.
Right. Well, you know what it is,
Exactly.
and so I'm reading the comments because Polly Chaser said, "But isn't the best comedy mostly on the edge?" Yes. But the problem is when a newer person just tries to be on the edge, they don't have the
They don't find the funny.
They don't have the skills to find the funny in the edge. They're just edgy.
Or
and then they said, "Isn't that what made the greats?" Yeah. And then Lynn, thank you. Oh, your wife is watching, Lynn Holland.
Yeah.
You're so right. And then Polly Chaser said Richard Pryor would be in big trouble if he came up today, I would think. And then it's truly sad to see Bill Hicks would be canceled very fast. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all of these, but that's the
funny.
thing.
My wife's chimed in.
Yeah, she's watching. That's great. We've got a new fan. That's awesome. No, but that's the challenge when you're new is balancing, emulating the people that you look up to who might be edgy, but you still have to make it funny. And not everyone can do that, especially when you're new. And I'm not shitting on new comics because I was new. I did the same shit. I remember when I first went up on stage, I didn't even have an act, Brian. I did.
Yeah.
I acted out scenes from movies because I did impressions.
Yeah, you did impressions, yeah.
And when Charlie Hall came up to me and said, "Look, your impressions are amazing, but, if you're going to do comedy, you need to write original material. You can't just act out movie scenes."
Yeah.
And that was great advice. But I think, newer comics need the advice too. And sometimes they get advice from people who just don't have the patience to give advice to a newer comic to help them. It's more just shitting on them,
Yeah, my wife just started doing comedy. She started about a year ago.
Your
cool.
wife just said he doesn't blue light me. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm leaving that one alone. I have too much respect for the
just
husband-wife
meant
thing
lighter.
to
Yeah,
bring that up.
I think they just meant light, not blue light. I don't know.
Oh, all right.
Does she light you in the bedroom? All right, that's
Yeah.
enough.
All right, you got
Wrap it up.
5 minutes. Wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
That's the pitfalls of
You
dating a
push up.
comic.
Why is she lighting me early?
Yeah.
I thought I still had 50. I thought I had
I thought I was
15 more
doing
minutes.
good.
She just lit me early.
Now
Yeah.
Polly Chaser is making jokes. Do you know what a trans joke is? It's a joke with the best parts cut out. And then they said, "I'll let myself out." I love when our audience.
That's it. That's actually pretty
That's
good.
a funny joke.
That's pretty good.
I love when our audience interacts with us.
That's great.
It's so cool.
Polly
My
Chaser.
wife's doing really well with their comedy, just starting out as
Yeah.
far as the new comic goes. She does well. So her material is like spot on. She can work clean.
Yep.
She does a lot of shows for nursing homes. She does like one-woman shows and stuff like that. She did one today, 2:00.
Really?
Yeah, she goes nursing homes. She sells drugs for a living. She works for a pharmacy.
Oh, really? What?
So what's a drug
company?
dealer? Mass Pack.
Oh, what do they do?
pack up- they-
What do
yeah,
they
they
do?
have like these sheets and they pack all the pills up so they know what time to take each one
for
and
the
all
nursing
that.
homes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to do that years ago, and then I've
Ace runs a cartel too.
I've worked for pharmaceutical companies for 27 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's awesome.
But yeah, she's got more of like, that seasoned sense of comedy that you don't get when you're in your 20s and you start out as a new comic.
Right.
Her comedy is more developed for someone who's been doing it for as long as she's been doing it.
And you're right.
Right.
And that's part of people that start at 20 and people that start at 40 and people start at 50. You look at things differently.
Yeah.
So when you go up there, your material is different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I noticed when I started, because I started 21 years ago. I was 34 years old. I was approaching it from a different life view at that point. Like Ace said, Eddie Murphy talked about, all he talked about was taking a shit. You know, I'm going up on stage with these guys that are talking about jerking off and getting high.
Right.
And I'm talking about trying to raise 3 daughters that are under 6 years old at the time, and dealing with that, and not getting laid because my wife is too busy raising young kids.
Right.
And I'm talking about a man's point of view with that part of his life.
Yeah,
and
like giving your
everything.
kids NyQuil so you can spend some time with the wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, just the, you know, the frustrations of life from that point of view. So I you know, I think I stood out a little bit because I was talking about different things than everybody else kind of around me at the time.
Right.
And then
And the audiences appreciate that.
you know, it was more real kind of real life experience, but you know, a bunch of the other people were talking about the same things.
Right.
Because they were drawing from the same life experience, and mine was the one different thing.
Yeah.
So it enabled me to kind of move up a little differently. And then a few years later, I'd go back to do guest spots, and I'd see the newer people coming in, and I noticed the same thing, that one person that stood out because they were a little bit older.
Because they were a little older
and
and
they were talking
experienced.
about some different
Right.
things. So I would notice that. You know, and I notice it now. Ace and I, last summer, we went and did some open mics, and you notice the one person that stood out because they talk about something a little different than everybody else is talking about.
Right, exactly.
You know, and you appreciate that. You know, the person that has that different point of view.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. Yeah, and it's you know, I think when you're older, comedy's more well received.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The way you deliver it, the way you present it, and all that.
Right.
It's tough to take advice from a kid in that, you know, mid-20s.
Right. Yeah.
Than say Al Bundy, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and when I go to open mics now, you know, even though I've been doing it for a while, I still don't feel that I'm in any position to give anybody advice. Now,
I
somebody if somebody asks me, I'll offer my opinion. But I don't walk up to anybody and say, "Hey, you know what you should do." That's
No,
not my
I don't
place.
do it that way.
No, I know you don't.
No.
I know you don't. And I'm not
I'll
saying
say,
you
hey,
do.
I was watching your set. Have you thought about this? Or, hey, I got a callback.
I'll
I don't have callbacks for my act, but I can write them for yours.
I'll give them a tagline or
Yeah.
I'll give them something like that. But, you know, I've had people come up to me afterwards, "Hey, what do you think, you know, I should work on and stuff like that?" And I still kind of feel a little uncomfortable doing that because
Right.
I don't know. You know, I know how I write for me and how I should do things, but and I
Right.
feel comfortable if you ask me for feedback on yours because I
Yeah.
know you and we're friends and everything.
Right.
But to a stranger that I don't know,
Yeah, no.
you
Yeah,
know,
you
I don't
don't-
want to come across like, you know, I'm looking down on them or judging them or something
Right.
like that.
Odds are the person is going to appreciate it and not take your advice. If anything, detrimental to their career. And
Right.
but yeah, I've been, you know, if someone asks me, a newer comic asks me for advice, then I'll just give them the basic advice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mic discipline. Make sure you address the whole crowd. Look at the room. Oh, everybody thinks you made eye contact with them. Don't shovel back and forth. Oh, you wait the 1 foot to the other. So the whole time you're on stage,
Right.
you're doing this.
Mechanics.
You know,
Yeah.
the little things. The
Yeah,
little
step
things,
away.
you know?
Take the mic out of the stand. Don't stand in front of, behind
Right.
the stand. Mike Katrobis
Yeah.
said it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Take the mic out of the stand. Own that stage. Whenever
Yeah.
we would do comedy contests in the 80s and 90s, it was you were judged on 3 things: material, stage presence, and audience response. Stage presence is so important.
Yeah.
You have to own that fucking stage.
What-
You have to let them
You're
know,
the one
this
talking.
is my home. I have a microphone. This is my stage.
You're the one
Exactly.
talking. You're in
Welcome.
charge.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
gotta let
yeah,
them know
be
you're in
comfortable.
charge.
Yeah, if you're not comfortable, the audience will pick up on it. They're
Right.
like dogs. You can tell when you're scared, you know?
I got to read a couple of the comments
Go ahead.
coming in. Polly Chaser, Eddie Murphy's Raw and Delirious, quite funny. I always thought Richard Pryor must have inspired them.
Oh yeah.
And then
I agree.
Then wait a minute, they're coming in. Lynn, your wife said no one wants to make the old lady cry. Polly Chaser said Bill Burr is the master of delivery. His older stuff never fails to make me laugh. It cannot get outrageous enough for me, though, so I would be the worst comedian ever in today's world. Everyone would be pissed off. Now that I think of it, that could be fun. Then Lynn said, dementia units in nursing homes are the best. If it doesn't hit the first time, wait 5 and tell it again in a different way. That's awesome. She is funny. We're gonna get her on.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, thanks for coming on. Could you get Lynn?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll do another episode with Lynn next.
Yeah, don't let the old lady. Don't make the old lady cry. That's Alcy's story. Yeah, she
that's
was
great.
doing. She was doing some about first responders.
Yep.
Anybody in here, was a first responder or a veteran or anything like that.
I like that.
And
Dementia
one
unit.
lady said my father was a cop and he got killed in the line of duty, and she just went off for like 5 minutes and she started crying.
Oh, Jesus.
And my
That's
wife's like,
horrible.
I gotta drop that joke.
Yeah, right. No shit. Oh my God. So let me ask you this. We always wrap up the show with this question, and if you've been doing comedy more than 6 months, you know exactly. You've probably got at least 2 or 3. But give us a funny bad gig story, and that's the gig. It wasn't funny the night of. Made you question whether or not you wanted to do comedy. But as you get further away from it, and you're in the green room talking to all the comics, and everyone's telling their war stories of, oh my God, you wouldn't believe this shit gig I did. This is your one-up story, as Scott calls it.
Yeah, when someone's telling their story, you go, really? You thought that was bad?
Yeah.
Oh, we lost you.
We lost you. Oh, hold on.
I did a benefit show.
I think he's on his cell phone.
Yeah.
We there? You got me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I can hear you.
All right. We lost you for a second. Go ahead. Nope, you're frozen again. Uh-oh. Lynn, can you find out if Brian is on his internet or if he's just on his cell phone service? Because we know Leicester, Mass., and there's no cell phone service out there.
None
so
whatsoever.
Hopefully you guys
Nope.
have a router. Oh, we lost him. He's going to come back on, hopefully. In the meantime, let's see. Lynn said dementia units are a great training ground. And then Polly Chaser said, someone really awkward can still make people laugh. It all depends on the context. Exactly. Yeah. You definitely can make people laugh. Come on. Polly Chaser said, come on, at least tell us one joke before you go off. And then we should ban old comedians from the internet. Listen, we're going to be nice to our guests.
Polly Chaser's killing it
Polly
tonight.
Chaser's on fire. I know.
Oh.
That's funny. And I remember Polly Chaser from all of the drinks, jokes, and storytelling shows that we were doing. We went
Hey,
off.
Polly Chaser, at least he didn't say he's having trouble with the internets.
The internets. Yeah, right.
and
You
the
know.
Facebooks.
No, but we haven't. So we'll take this opportunity while Brian's trying to get back on. We'll take this opportunity to talk a little bit about. So we were on drinks, jokes, and storytelling for a long time. We didn't go on for a while. I think it's because we switched nights and we had a conflict with one of the other shows that was on.
Yeah.
Now that we're back on, we're on Thursday nights. We're at 7:00. So we're before John Polveromo's show, which is Dystopia Tonight.
Yeah.
And that comes on later on tonight. So I think we're good for a little while that we can get back on, because we really love the folks at Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling. And listen, Polly Chaser, if you can talk to Tom Bannis about coming on and moderating our show,
Wow,
we
we'd
would
love to have him on.
absolutely love him to be our producer or our person,
Moderator.
our moderator for the comments. Because I apologize, I'm not good at looking at comments because we haven't gotten
Busy with the
comments in a while.
conversation, yeah.
Yeah, so we forget. I don't know if I think Brian might have lost his internet. So we might have to have Brian back on another time just to tell his story of,
We
what
could
we'll
tell
do?
some road stories with him and his wife.
Yeah, you know what we'll do? We'll have Lynn on to talk about her career.
And
then
her
we'll
and
have,
Brian could give us some road stories.
they'll give us some road
yeah,
stories.
We'll do
so-
that. We'll do that
so
with
we'll-
the two of them.
We'll do that. We apologize, folks.
That's all right. Brian's a great guy. He
Yeah.
does, the thing is
A lot
with
of
him,
fundraisers.
man, he's involved
Yeah.
in a lot of fundraisers. So not only is he a funny guy, the guy's got a huge heart,
Yeah.
helps out a lot of organizations, just like we mentioned Jerry Caruso earlier, which is definitely a guy we got to get on soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll reach out to
but
Jerry.
Brian's a very funny comedian. He's been around 12 years, but I think he's one of those guys that's, because he started later in life, he draws from so much life experience that he's got a lot of great stories when he's on stage. So he's definitely a guy you want to check out. I will post a link to his Facebook page in the show notes so you can see where he's going to play and check him out. But we appreciate him coming on, definitely. Lynn, if you're still connected, tell Brian thank you very much, and we will get you and him on in the very
we'll get
near
you guys
future.
back on, 'cause
I think
that'd be
that would be
cool.
a fun episode to have the two of you on.
That would.
We've had a few couples on in the
Yeah,
past.
yeah.
And I
We've
love when
had,
we have couples on because you can shit on each other.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I mean, listen. When we had Al Ducharme and Bernadette Pauly on, they were fucking hilarious.
Greatest
that was
one,
awesome.
greatest one ever
Yeah.
as far as a couple goes.
Yeah.
But
And even when we had Tom Cotter and Kerry Louise on, there was a
it
lot
was
of
a
fun.
lot.
There was a lot of ball busting going.
Definitely
back
a
and
lot of
forth.
fun. And of course, Jay Burns and Brian Vincent. They're another great couple.
Another great couple. That's awesome.
I had to do it.
Yeah, I love it.
had
I
to do
love it. I love it.
But yeah, no, we enjoyed getting to know Brian. I certainly hope I get to work with him.
Yeah.
Because I love when we have people on that we haven't talked to or haven't worked with. Either one of us
Right,
haven't
yeah.
worked with. We get to know them. But I certainly hope I get to work with them. But guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the reviews. If you haven't had a chance to, please go where you download your podcast and give us a 5-star written review.
It really
helps us a ton in all of the different rankings and ratings.
And the reason why we keep begging for that is because when you type in, if someone types in, I'd like to listen to a new comedy podcast, the more reviews we get and the more recent reviews we get, that helps us show up in their search. So that's the reason why we're asking every week. If you want, we've got our Buy Me a Coffee. If you go to Buy Me a no? We don't do it?
No, we have Buy Me a Coffee,
all right.
but let's face it.
Oh, it's Buy Me a Bourbon. We've already
Yeah.
said that plenty of times.
It's not going to go towards coffee.
No,
let's face it.
We're not going to lie. We're going to be very transparent.
But in the show
But-
notes, there are 2 links for the show. If you want to support the show, there's Buy Me a Coffee, where you guys can just make a simple donation to help support the Bourbon Fund, and there's also a merch link.
Yep.
You can get a T-shirt, hoodie.
Yep.
There's coffee mugs. There's all kinds of stuff on there if you guys want to buy something, and we get a few shekels from that.
You haven't said shekels in a while.
I haven't, and I wanted
know,
to.
I know.
But no,
But yeah.
we get a little bit of the funds from that. So if you guys want to support the podcast, that's 2 great ways to help us offset the expense of putting this podcast out. For
Yes,
you guys.
because I just got the bill from StreamYard, and that's a big one.
Yeah, and I got the bill from the 3 different platforms that I have for
Yeah,
it. So both of us sharing that expense. So
Please,
yeah,
help us.
a couple of bucks would be a big help.
Yeah, and listen, folks, we've got some great guests coming up. I've reached out to some big names that we've reached out to. We're not going to give it away yet.
No, because we don't have exact dates for who's going to be on when, but we
Exactly.
have so many out there right now. So.
And I will say this too: we're working on something. If you have not listened to the Mixtape podcast,
I
our
love
buddies,
those guys. You got to check these guys out.
I love these guys. They reach out to us at least 4 times a week because they went back and listened to our back catalog.
Yeah.
And Twisted Kid Matt has a question every week. He's like, wait a minute, this blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yes. But we're working on something really special with those guys, and it'll be this summer. So,
And if
stay
you guys
tuned
want
for
to check
that.
out another podcast that I think you
love
really
'em.
like,
Love 'em.
check out their podcast because they are so much fun.
If you were a child of the 80s or the 90s,
yeah.
even the late 70s, they are a podcast that you will love because they talk about movies and music and everything, toys, everything from the 70s.
They even
and,
did TV show
80s.
themes. That was one of my favorite ones.
80s and 90s. You got to check them out. But we're working on something with them that's going to be really special this summer.
Yeah.
So we may be taking a road trip to go see those boys live, which would be fantastic.
Was that a teaser?
That
Ace
is a
Aceto?
teaser. Yes, it
Was
is.
that a teaser?
Yeah, I don't do callbacks, but I
But
can
yeah.
do teasers.
Oh my God, Ace is expanding his repertoire.
Look at me. I know. Listen, we really appreciate everyone who listens. Please tell a friend about us. It helps
Yes.
the podcast grow. We
5-star
love
written
doing
reviews.
this. Yep, we love doing this. And listen, other than that, we will talk to you
Next week.